Just hours ago, a significant development leaked from Washington. President Donald Trump has already made a decision that could change the future of Venezuela and potentially redraw the geopolitical map of the Western Hemisphere. After a week of politically charged meetings, secret briefings, and military preparations, it has become clear that the United States is no longer just observing Venezuela's crisis. The government may be on the brink of direct action. But what exactly has Trump decided? Is this about stopping drug trafficking, promoting democracy, or asserting dominance in the region? Let's uncover the timeline, implications, and potential consequences of this decision, and understand why this moment might mark a turning point in Latin American history. A ticking clock, the secret meetings that changed everything. Last week, while most media focused on election coverage and domestic news, a series of unusual meetings took place in Washington, D.C. According to multiple sources, including 4 informants who spoke with CNN, President Trump was briefed on a range of military options for Venezuela. These options weren't hypothetical. They included actionable plans, detailed strike coordinates, and a full analysis of military, political, and humanitarian outcomes. Among those present were top Pentagon officials, the Secretary of Defense, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and representatives from the CIA. According to insiders, one theme dominated the conversation. Nicolás Maduro had gone too far. His regime wasn't simply corrupt or authoritarian. It had crossed into terrorism and organized crime. With mounting evidence linking Maduro to drug trafficking, human rights abuses, and ties with U.S. adversaries, Trump's advisors argued that stronger action was necessary. They presented the president a clear choice: continue sanctions and diplomatic pressure, or escalate efforts in a way the world has not seen before. When asked about his decision on Air Force One, Trump's answer was chilling in its simplicity. "I've kind of made up my mind. I can't say what it is, but I've made a decision." Venezuela, collapse of a nation, rise of a threat. To understand why this decision is so significant, we need to understand what Venezuela has become. Not too long ago, Venezuela was considered the jewel of South America, a nation rich in natural resources, thriving in oil production, and enjoying high standards of living. But under the regimes of Hugo Chavez and Nicolás Maduro, the country has crumbled into economic ruin. Hyperinflation has destroyed currency. Families sell their possessions to buy food, and millions have fled the country, often crossing borders on foot. Hospitals lack basic supplies. Public services have collapsed. Crime and corruption rule the streets. But for the United States, one threat stands out above the rest: the nexus between Maduro's government and powerful criminal organizations, especially the infamous Cartel de los Soles. This cartel, allegedly led by high-ranking Venezuelan officials and military leaders, has been linked to cocaine trafficking, illegal gold smuggling, and weapons distribution across Latin America and beyond. The US has long accused Maduro of operating not just as a political dictator, but as a cartel kingpin. That's why, on Sunday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced a drastic move. The United States would designate the Cartel de los Soles as a foreign terrorist organization, a legal classification normally reserved for groups like ISIS or Al-Qaeda. This classification opens the door to military strikes, covert operations, and arrest orders, all justified under counter-terror laws. Rubio stated, "Maduro has corrupted every institution in Venezuela and is directly responsible for terrorist operations in partnership with other foreign groups and for trafficking drugs to the United States and Europe." This wasn't just diplomatic rhetoric. It was a precedent. It was a warning. And most of all, it was a signal that military intervention was now legally on the table. Military mobilization, Operation Southern Spear. While politicians debated, another arm of the US government was already moving. Over a dozen warships quietly deployed to the Caribbean under the umbrella of what the Pentagon calls Operation Southern Spear. This included the unprecedented arrival of the USS Gerald R. Ford, the most powerful aircraft carrier ever built, capable of launching stealth fighters, drones, and massive strike sorties. Alongside it were Navy destroyers, amphibious assault ships, and logistical support vessels. In total, more than 15,000 troops are stationed in the region, not for training, not for humanitarian aid, but for readiness. The US Army confirmed this position indirectly Sunday morning during a CBS interview. When asked whether American forces were ready to act, the Secretary of the Army replied, "They're ready to act if requested. The President and Secretary of War have spent a lot of time considering what's best for the American people. From our perspective, we're prepared." This quiet acknowledgement speaks volumes. The build-up is real. The capacity exists. Authority may soon follow. A game of deception, public denial, strategic silence. Interestingly, just days before these movements became public, Trump claimed in an interview that he was not considering military strikes against Venezuela. But those who follow US strategy closely recognize something familiar in his tone. The same pattern played out before the US strike against Iran in 2020. Trump declared publicly that he was giving Iran 2 weeks to negotiate, only to launch a surprise strike days later on Iranian nuclear targets. Military analysts now believe that Trump's public denial regarding Venezuela may have been a calculated psychological tactic, an attempt to keep Maduro from mobilizing defenses or seeking foreign reinforcements before the United States was fully positioned. With military power in place, a terrorist designation in motion, and pressure growing on Maduro, the stage is set. The president has been given a full menu of strike options, and the world waits to see what he will choose. What could happen next? Scenarios and risks. Let's examine the most likely scenarios. Option 1. Targeted airstrikes. The US could launch limited airstrikes against drug infrastructure, communication nodes, key military bases, or cartel operations inside Venezuela. These would send a strong message and disrupt Maduro's power without committing to a full ground invasion. Option 2. Covert support for a coup. The CIA has a long history of supporting resistance movements in Latin America. Trump last month confirmed that the CIA had been authorized to take action in Venezuela. A coup led by Venezuelan officers or rebel groups could topple Maduro with minimal US military involvement. Option 3. Full regime removal. The most extreme option. A full-scale military operation designed to remove Maduro and install a US-backed government. This would likely involve air, sea, and ground forces, and carry enormous risk of civilian casualties, foreign backlash, and chaos. Of course, there's always option 4, no action, at least not yet. Trump could delay any military operation until after the terrorist designation becomes official on November 24th, strategically timing it for maximum legal justification and political impact. Yet every sign suggests time is running out. The military is in position. The legal framework is ready. Trump says he's already made his decision. The only missing element is the command to act. If Maduro falls, victory or chaos? If the US succeeds in removing Maduro, the global perception of American power will shift once again. This could be framed as a monumental victory, proof that the US can take down authoritarian leaders and restore democracy in its own hemisphere. The US could then work with a transitional government to secure cooperation on anti-drug operations, increase intelligence sharing, and take advantage of Venezuela's vast oil reserves. But the risks remain enormous. History shows that regime change often leads to long-term instability, power struggles, and unexpected consequences. From Iraq to Libya, the aftermath of intervention has sometimes proven more disastrous than the original conflict. Will Venezuela become a new failed state or a reborn democracy? Final thoughts. A critical crossroads for the United States and Latin America today. The United States stands on the brink of one of the most consequential decisions in decades. With military forces mobilized, diplomatic pressure at maximum, and a terrorist label to justify direct action, the situation is reaching a breaking point. Donald Trump has said he's already made up his mind. The world now waits for the moment his decision becomes action. If the US launches its operation, history will change in Venezuela, in Latin America, and in the halls of power across the globe. Will this be the moment the United States restores democracy in Venezuela, or the moment it enters a new era of conflict and uncertainty? Only time and the president's final command will tell.